The kingdom of Black Hollow prepared for the arrival of the most feared Alpha King in the north. Every noble family brought their most beautiful daughters, hoping one would become his Luna. But inside the Silverfang mansion, while one sister wore diamonds and silk to win his heart, the forgotten sister scrubbed blood from the castle floors with frozen hands. No one noticed her. Not the nobles. Not the servants. Not even the cruel family who treated her like a ghost. But the moment the Alpha King stepped into the grand hall, his wolf went silent. Because the scent of his true mate was not coming from the perfect daughter standing beneath the chandeliers. It was coming from the broken girl hidden behind the servants. And when he finally looked at her, everything changed. The Forgotten Daughter. Snow covered the mountains surrounding Silverfang Castle like a burial cloth. The wind howled against the stone walls while servants rushed through the corridors carrying flowers, candles, silver trays, and expensive wine. Tonight was important. The Alpha King himself was arriving. Every servant whispered his name with fear. King Lucian Draven. The undefeated ruler of the Northern Pax. The beast who conquered 5 kingdoms before the age of 30. The Alpha whose wolf was said to kill without mercy. And tonight, he would choose a Luna. Inside the grand dressing chamber, Lady Selene Silverfang stood proudly before a golden mirror while maids adjusted the sparkling jewels around her throat. "You must smile softer," her mother said sharply. "Men like power, but they worship gentleness." Selene rolled her eyes. "I know how to control men." Her younger sister, Clarissa, giggled from nearby while brushing silk gloves over her hands. "Especially kings." The women laughed together. But another girl stood silently in the corner holding a basket of dirty dresses. Her name was Elara. The eldest daughter of the Silverfang family. Or rather, the Forgotten Daughter. Unlike her sisters, Elara wore no jewels. No silk. No makeup. Her plain gray servant dress hung loosely from her thin frame. Ash stained her sleeves from cleaning fireplaces. A faded scar rested near her collarbone. She kept her head lowered. Always lowered. Because in this house, looking people in the eye often earned punishment. "Why are you still standing there?" Lady Vivian Silverfang snapped coldly. "Take these dresses and clean the mud from the hems before the guests arrive." "Yes, my lady," Elara whispered. Clarissa smirked. "She smells like smoke. Keep her away from the banquet hall before the Alpha mistakes her for a kitchen rat." Laughter filled the room again. Elara forced herself not to react. Years ago, those words would have hurt. Now they simply echoed. She turned quietly and left the chamber. The hallway beyond was freezing cold. Servants rushed past her without speaking. Everyone knew better than to associate with the unwanted daughter. Elara descended the servant staircase toward the washing room deep beneath the castle. The underground chamber smelled of soap, wet cloth, and old stone. She knelt beside a basin and began scrubbing dirt from Selene's silver gown. Her hands trembled from cold water. But she continued silently. Outside, wolves howled in the distance. A strange ache suddenly twisted inside her chest. She paused. For a moment, the air felt different. Heavy. Electric. As if something powerful had crossed into the territory. The candles flickered violently. Elara looked up slowly. Then she heard it. The castle horns. The Alpha King had arrived. Above her, the entire castle erupted into movement. Footsteps thundered across floors. Servants shouted orders. Music began echoing from the ballroom. Elara swallowed hard and continued scrubbing the dress. She would not be allowed upstairs. Not tonight. Not ever. Hours later, the grand banquet finally began. Noble families gathered beneath massive crystal chandeliers while musicians played haunting violin melodies. Gold banners bearing the Silverfang crest hung proudly from the ceiling. At the center of the hall stood King Lucien Draven. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Terrifying. His black ceremonial coat shimmered with silver embroidery. A dark fur mantle rested across his shoulders. His silver eyes scanned the crowd with cold intelligence. Every noble daughter stared at him breathlessly. But Lucien looked bored. None of them interested him. Not their beauty. Not their rehearsed smiles. Not their expensive perfumes. His wolf remained silent. Until suddenly, everything inside him froze. A scent. Soft. Wild. Like moonflowers blooming during winter. Lucien's head snapped toward the servant entrance. His wolf growled violently inside him. Mate. The word exploded through his mind. But before he could move, Celine stepped gracefully before him and curtsied. My king, she purred. Welcome to Silverfang Castle. The nobles watched eagerly. Celine was beautiful enough to become queen. Lucien stared at her. Nothing. No bond. No pull. No recognition. Yet the scent remained. Closer now. Hidden somewhere behind the servants. His eyes narrowed dangerously. At the edge of the ballroom, Elara entered quietly carrying a tray of wine glasses. She kept her gaze lowered while moving carefully between guests. But the moment Lucien saw her, time stopped. Her dress was plain. Her hair unstyled. Her hands rough from labor. Yet his wolf nearly lost control. Mine. The possessive growl shook through his chest. Elara suddenly looked up. Their eyes met. And the tray slipped from her hands. Glass shattered across the marble floor. The ballroom fell silent. Fear flooded Elara's face instantly. I am sorry, she whispered desperately while kneeling to gather broken glass. Lady Vivian's expression darkened with rage. You useless girl. Before Elara could react. Crack. A brutal slap struck her face. Gasps spread through the hall. Elara hit the floor hard, blood touching her lip. Lucien's wolf exploded with fury. Every candle in the ballroom flickered violently from the pressure of his alpha aura. The nobles froze in terror. Slowly. Very slowly. The Alpha King turned toward Lady Vivian. And for the first time that night, he smiled. But there was nothing warm about it. Tell me, Lucien said softly, why are you striking my mate? The entire ballroom stopped breathing. Celine's face turned white. Clarissa dropped her wine glass. And Elara stared at the Alpha King in complete horror. Because kings did not choose forgotten servant girls. Kings chose perfect Lunas. Yet Lucien Draven was already walking toward her like a predator claiming what belonged to him. And the Silverfang family suddenly realized. They had made a terrible mistake. The king's choice. The silence inside the ballroom became suffocating. No one moved. No one even breathed. The shattered wine glasses glittered across the marble floor while Elara remained kneeling beside them, one trembling hand pressed against her bleeding lip. And standing only a few feet away, King Lucien Draven looked ready to destroy the entire room. His silver eyes burned with terrifying intensity as he stared at Lady Vivian Silverfang. Answer me, he said quietly. The softness in his voice was far more frightening than shouting. Lady Vivian swallowed hard. My king, there must be some misunderstanding. Lucien tilted his head slightly. A misunderstanding? His wolf pushed against the surface again, filling the ballroom with suffocating alpha pressure. Several weaker nobles immediately lowered their gazes. One man nearly collapsed. Celine stepped forward quickly, forcing a graceful smile onto her face. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "Elara is only a servant. She works below the estate. Surely your wolf reacted incorrectly." Incorrectly. The word echoed through the hall like an insult. Lucien's expression darkened. "My wolf," he said slowly, "has never been wrong." Fear flashed through Celine's eyes. She had spent months preparing for this night. Every noble family believed she would become Luna Queen. Her beauty, status, and bloodline made her the perfect choice. Not Elara. Never Elara. Elara still knelt frozen on the floor. "Mate." The word kept echoing inside her mind. Impossible. She was no Luna. She had no wolf. At least, none that had ever awakened. In werewolf kingdoms, wolves usually appeared during adolescence. But Elara reached adulthood without transformation. The Silverfang family considered her defective. Weak. Embarrassing. That was why they hid her. That was why they turned her into a servant. Lucien stepped closer. The closer he came, the stronger the strange bond became. Elara's chest tightened painfully. His scent surrounded her now, pine smoke, winter, wild forests after rain. Dangerous. Powerful. Her pulse trembled uncontrollably. "Stand," Lucien ordered softly. Elara obeyed immediately. Years of punishment had taught her never to hesitate. The moment she rose, Lucien noticed fresh bruises hidden beneath her sleeve. His jaw clenched. "Who did this to you?" Elara quickly lowered her gaze. "No one, my king." A lie. A terrible lie. The scent of fear pouring from her body told him everything. Lucien slowly reached toward her face. The ballroom gasped. An alpha king touching a servant publicly was unheard of. But Lucien ignored everyone. His fingers gently lifted her chin. The red mark from Lady Vivian's slap burned against her pale skin. Rage exploded through him again. "You dare injure what belongs to me?" Lady Vivian nearly stumbled backward. "My king, she is simply clumsy. She is my mate." The word struck the ballroom like thunder. Whispers erupted instantly. "Impossible, a servant? She has no wolf, the king cannot choose her." Lucien's eyes snapped toward the crowd. Silence returned immediately. Meanwhile, Celine's expression twisted with desperation. She stepped closer to Lucien. "You cannot be serious," she whispered. "Look at her." Lucien did. And somehow, the sight of Elara standing there in fear shattered something inside him. Because beneath the bruises, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the plain servant dress, she was beautiful. Not polished beauty. Not the cold perfection noblewomen forced onto themselves. Elara looked real. Soft silver-gray eyes. Dark waves of hair escaping loose braids. Gentle features hidden beneath years of sadness. And her scent. Moonflowers during snowfall. Lucien's wolf became possessive instantly. "Mine." Celine reached toward Lucien's arm. "You deserve a queen beside you," she said desperately. "Not." Lucien moved so quickly the room barely saw it happen. He grabbed Celine's wrist before she could touch him. Pain flashed across her face. "You speak of worth," Lucien said coldly. "Yet you strike servants, mock weakness, and wear kindness like jewelry whenever nobles are watching." Celine's face paled. "How?" "I notice everything." Then he released her violently. Celine staggered backward humiliated. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. For years the Silverfang family built a reputation of elegance and honor. But tonight, their masks were breaking apart. Lucien turned back toward Elara. "What is your name?" "Elara," she whispered. His gaze softened slightly. "Elara Silverfang." Her breath caught. No one had spoken her full name in years. To everyone else, she was merely servant girl. Forgotten girl. Worthless girl. But hearing her name spoken gently by someone like him nearly hurt more than cruelty. Lucien noticed the confusion in her eyes immediately. "You truly did not know?" Elara frowned faintly. "Know what?" "That you are my mate." The entire room watched her. Elara's hands trembled harder. I cannot be." "Why?" "Because," her voice cracked softly. "I don't have a wolf." The confession filled the hall with whispers again. Lucien stared at her carefully. "No wolf?" "Impossible." The mate bond could not form with a human. Yet his instincts screamed otherwise. He stepped closer again. "What happened during your awakening ceremony?" Elara hesitated. Lady Vivian interrupted sharply. "She failed it." Lucien's eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." The older woman forced a nervous smile. "Her wolf never appeared. We assumed she inherited weak blood from distant relatives. But something about the explanation felt wrong." Lucien studied Elara carefully. And suddenly, his wolf growled. Not at Elara. At the scent coming from Lady Vivian. Fear. Hidden fear. Interesting. Lucien's voice became dangerously calm. "Did the royal healer examine her?" "No." "Did the moon priestess?" Lady Vivian hesitated too long. Lucien noticed instantly. "No," she admitted quietly. The Alpha King went silent. Then slowly, his gaze drifted toward the high windows where moonlight poured into the ballroom. Tonight was the Blood Moon Festival. The strongest night of spiritual energy all year. And suddenly, a terrible possibility formed in his mind. Some wolves did not awaken naturally. Some remained dormant after trauma. Suppressed. Buried. Lucien looked back at Elara. "What happened to you as a child?" Elara froze. Memories flickered through her mind instantly. Screaming. Pain. Darkness. Silver chains. Her chest tightened violently. "I don't remember much," she whispered. Another lie. Lucien could smell it again. But before he could speak, a deep horn echoed outside the castle. The guards rushed toward the windows. Snowstorms swirled violently beyond the walls. And from the darkness came howls. Not ordinary wolves. War wolves. The ballroom erupted into panic. Lucien immediately stepped in front of Elara protectively. A captain burst through the doors moments later. "My king! What is it?" The Crimson Fang pack crossed the northern border. Shock spread through the nobles. The Crimson Fang wolves were savage mercenaries loyal to no kingdom. "They demand surrender," the captain continued nervously. And they claim they came for the Moonborn girl." Lucien's entire body went still. Moonborn. Every instinct inside him exploded. Slowly. Very slowly. He turned toward Elara. And for the first time since entering the castle, fear touched the Alpha King's eyes. Because Moonborn wolves were not ordinary creatures. They were ancient bloodlines blessed directly by the Moon Goddess herself. Rare. Powerful. Dangerous. Legends claimed their power could either save kingdoms or destroy them. Elara stared back at him in confusion. "I don't understand." Neither did Lucien. But he understood one thing clearly. The Crimson Fang pack had not crossed kingdoms during a snowstorm for no reason. They came for Elara. Which meant the Silverfang family had been hiding something far bigger than a powerless daughter. Outside, another terrifying howl echoed across the mountains. Closer this time. Lucien's wolf snarled violently beneath his skin. Then the Alpha King made his decision. Without warning, he removed the black royal cloak from his shoulders and wrapped it carefully around Elara. The massive fur mantle swallowed her small frame completely. Gasps spread across the room again. Because in werewolf tradition, an alpha only covered one woman with his cloak. His Luna. Lucien's voice thundered through the ballroom. From this moment forward, Elara Silverfang stands under royal protection. His silver eyes swept toward the terrified nobles. Anyone who harms her. The temperature inside the room seemed to drop instantly. Will answer to me. Outside, thunder shook the mountains. And somewhere deep inside Elara's chest, something ancient finally began to wake. The Crimson Fang War begins. The mountains outside Silverfang Castle trembled. Not from storm, but from movement. Thousands of wolves advanced through the snow like a living tide, their crimson eyes glowing beneath the blood moon. The Crimson Fang pack had finally stopped waiting. Because the signal had been given. The Moon Sovereign had awakened. Inside the shattered ballroom, Elara hovered slightly above the ground, silver light still flickering across her skin. The broken crown symbol beside her crescent mark pulsed like a heartbeat. Lucien stood beside her, no longer hiding his wolf. His presence anchored her, keeping her from spiraling fully into the overwhelming force inside her. But even he could feel it now. Something massive was approaching. Not just wolves. A war. Elara, Lucien said firmly, listen to me. Her glowing eyes turned toward him slowly. I'm here, she whispered, but her voice still carried layers of power underneath it. The Crimson Fang Alpha is coming, Lucien said. And he's not coming to negotiate. A deep silence followed. Then, a laugh echoed through the shattered ballroom. Cold. Slow. Deliberate. Every head turned toward the broken western wall. A figure stepped through the falling snow. He wore no armor. Only a dark fur mantle soaked in blood and frost. His eyes glowed red like burning embers. The Crimson Fang Alpha. Kael Virith. He stopped just inside the broken entrance and looked around the ruined ballroom with mild amusement. So, he said, voice calm, this is where the Moon Sovereign wakes. Elara's body tensed instantly. Lucien stepped forward slightly. You crossed my borders, Lucien said coldly. Kael smiled. I crossed many borders to get here. His gaze shifted to Elara. And the moment he saw her fully, his expression changed. Not fear. Not surprise. Recognition. Yes, Kael whispered. It's really you. Elara's chest tightened. I don't know you, she said. Kael tilted his head. No, he agreed. You wouldn't remember. The air shifted. Lucien's alpha aura flared instantly. Explain. Kael laughed softly. You think she's just moonborn, he said, stepping closer. The shattered floor creaked under his weight. She is the reason the old kingdoms burned. Silence fell like a blade. Celine, hiding behind debris, froze. Lady Vivian shook her head in panic. No. No, that's impossible. Kael pointed toward Elara. She is not a mistake of bloodline. His voice deepened. She is a sealed sovereign. Elara's breathing quickened. Lucien's eyes narrowed sharply. Sealed by who? Kael's smile faded slightly. The Council of Seven Moons. The name alone made Cedric Silverfang collapse to his knees. Celine stared in disbelief. The ancient council is just a myth. Kale looked amused. They would prefer you believe that. He turned back toward Elara. You were born with the authority to command all wolf-blooded creatures, he said. Not just packs. Not just wolves. A pause. Beasts. Spirits. Even the shadow realm itself. Elara staggered backward slightly. Lucien immediately grabbed her arm to steady her. Kale continued. But power like yours cannot be allowed to exist freely. His red eyes hardened. So they sealed you as a child, split your soul into fragments. And hid you among weak bloodlines so no one would find you. Elara's memories flickered violently again. Screams. Chains. A glowing circle. And a woman crying while holding her as a baby. No, Elara whispered. Lucien turned sharply toward Cedric. You knew this. Cedric lowered his head. I had no choice. Lucien's voice turned lethal. You always have a choice. The air in the ballroom began to shake. Kale raised a hand slightly. Enough history, he said. His gaze locked on Elara. I didn't come here for speeches. A dark smile returned. I came to bring her home. Instantly. Lucien moved. The floor exploded beneath his feet as he transformed mid-charge into his massive silver wolf form. Kale met him halfway. Their collision sent a shockwave through the castle walls. Boom! Entire sections of the ballroom collapsed outward. Snow and debris poured in. Elara screamed as she was thrown backward. But before she hit the ground, invisible energy caught her. She floated again. But this time, it wasn't calm. It was unstable. Her power was reacting to the violence. Lucien and Kale fought outside now, visible through the broken walls. Silver against crimson. Claws against shadow fire. Every strike shook the mountain itself. Inside the ballroom, Celine crawled backward in terror. He's going to destroy the castle. Lady Vivian grabbed her dress. We need to escape. But Elara wasn't looking at them. Her eyes were fixed on Lucien. Even in wolf form, he was bleeding now. Kale was stronger than expected. Much stronger. And every time Lucien was hit, something inside Elara cracked. Pain. Sharp. Personal. Why does it hurt like this? The broken crown symbol on her chest flared violently. Suddenly. A memory surged. Not partial. Full. A golden hull. 7 figures. A baby crying in silver light. And a voice speaking. She must never awaken fully. Elara gasped. The floating stopped. Her body dropped slightly. Lucien noticed immediately. Elara, he roared mid-battle. Kale used the opening and slammed him into a collapsed pillar. Crack. Lucien hit the ground hard. Elara's breath broke. No. Something inside her snapped. The silver light around her turned darker. Heavier. More dangerous. Kale looked up from the battlefield and smiled. Yes, he said softly. That's it. Inside Elara's mind. The moon spirit wolf reappeared. But this time, it was no longer calm. Its eyes burned red. You were never meant to be controlled, it said. Elara trembled. I don't want this power. The spirit stepped closer. It is not something you want. Its voice deepened. It is something you are. Back in reality. Elara's eyes snapped open. But the silver glow had changed. It was no longer soft. It was absolute. The entire battlefield stopped. Lucien, Kale, the wolves outside, even the storm itself. All froze for a single heartbeat. Then Elara descended slowly toward the ground. Her feet touched the broken marble. And when she spoke, her voice was no longer layered. It was singular. Clear. Commanding. Stop. The world obeyed. Even Kale paused mid-step. Lucien rose slowly, his silver wolf form fading as he stared at her. Elara. She looked at him. And for the first time, he felt something he had never felt before. Not dominance. Not fear. Not even instinct. Reverence. Elara turned toward Kale. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. You came for me, she said softly. Kale smirked. Yes. A pause. Elara tilted her head slightly. Then kneel. The command hit the air like thunder. Kale's body trembled. For a split second. His knees almost touched the ground. Almost. He forced himself back up, shocked. Lucien stared in disbelief. Kale laughed breathlessly. Oh, he said. So it's true. He looked at Elara with something new now. Excitement. Good, Kale whispered. The real war can finally begin. Far beyond the castle. Every crimson fang wolf lifted their heads at once. And howled in perfect synchronization. Because the Moon Sovereign had spoken. And the world had answered. The Moon Sovereign's decision. The world was holding its breath. Snow hung suspended in the air outside Silverfang Castle, frozen mid-fall as if time itself had forgotten how to move. Wolves stood still on the mountainside, heads raised, jaws open in silent howls that had not yet finished forming. Inside the shattered ballroom, silence pressed down like a god's hand. Elara stood at the center of it all. The silver glow around her had stopped expanding. It had stabilized. Not softer. Not weaker. Just, controlled. Her crescent moon mark and broken crown symbol burned steadily beneath her skin like twin thrones. Lucien stood a few steps away, watching her carefully, his body still half tensed as if ready to move at any second. Blood stained his torn sleeves from Kale's earlier strike, but he didn't seem to feel it. Kale Virith remained kneeling. Not fully. Not willingly. One knee touched the broken marble. The other trembled just above it as if resisting an invisible force pressing him down. His crimson eyes were wide now. Not with fear. With fascination. You didn't just awaken, Kale whispered. You took control of the command itself. Elara looked at him quietly. The air around her pulsed once. Kale's second knee hit the ground. Lucien's eyes narrowed slightly. He felt it too. That pressure wasn't brute force. It was law. Elara had become something that didn't fight power. It rewrote it. Kale exhaled sharply, a faint smile forming despite himself. This is worse than I thought, he murmured. Or better. Lucien stepped forward immediately. No more talking to him, Lucien said coldly. Elara lifted a hand slightly. And Lucien stopped. Not because he wanted to. Because something inside him responded to her command before thought could catch up. He froze for half a second. Then his expression tightened. You're extending it to me now, he said quietly. Elara blinked. I didn't mean to. Kale laughed under his breath. Of course you didn't, he said. That's the problem. A deep rumble echoed from outside the broken castle walls. The Crimson Fang army was moving again. Not retreating. Advancing. Kale tilted his head slightly toward the noise. My wolves won't stay frozen forever, he said. And neither will the world. His gaze returned to Elara. You have two choices now, Moon Sovereign. Elara's eyes narrowed faintly. Kale continued. Stay here, and watch this kingdom burn around you as every alpha comes to claim or kill you. A pause. Or come with me. Reclaim your throne. End the sealing war before it consumes everything again. Lucien's aura flared instantly. Over my dead body. Kale glanced at him. That can be arranged. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Lucien moved. But Elara spoke first. Stop. Again. The word wasn't loud. But it didn't need volume. Lucien froze mid-step. Kale's smirk faded slightly. Even the distant war outside hesitated. Elara looked between them both. For the first time since awakening, her expression showed something fragile beneath the power. Confusion. You both keep talking like I belong to something, she said quietly. Silence deepened. Lucien's jaw tightened. Kale slowly lifted his head. Elara continued. I don't understand any of this. Moon Sovereign, Sealed Wolf, Council, War. Her voice cracked slightly. I was just surviving. A brief flicker of pain crossed Lucien's face. Kale's expression softened for a fraction of a second before returning to something guarded. Elara looked down at her glowing hands. This power, it hurts. The silver light trembled slightly in response to her emotion. The castle walls groaned. As if reacting to her instability. Lucien stepped closer, but more carefully this time. Elara, he said softly, you are not the cause of this war. She looked up at him. He continued. You are the reason it was hidden. Kale let out a quiet breath. Careful, Alpha King, he muttered. Truth can be heavier than steel. Lucien didn't look away from Elara. The Council of Seven Moons didn't seal you because you were dangerous, he said. They sealed you because you were balance. Elara's brows tightened slightly. Balance of what? Kale answered this time. Between creation and destruction. A pause. He straightened slightly, though still constrained by her influence. When Moon Sovereigns awaken fully, he said, they don't just command wolves. His eyes darkened. They decide which kingdoms survive the next era. A cold silence followed. Outside. A massive horn sounded. Not Crimson Fang. Not Silver Fang. Something older. Deeper. 3 long echoes that shook the mountain itself. Kale's expression changed instantly. No. He muttered. Lucien turned sharply toward the sound. What is that? Kale slowly rose, finally managing to push against Elara's pressure just enough to stand. His voice dropped. The Council. Elara stiffened. Lucien's eyes narrowed. They're here? Kale nodded once. And they don't tolerate unstable sovereigns. Elara's heart beat faster. I didn't ask for any of this, she said quietly. Kale looked at her directly. No one does. The castle trembled again. This time, not from wolves. From above. A circle of glowing silver runes appeared in the sky above the broken ceiling, cutting through storm clouds like a wound in reality. Light descended. 6 figures appeared within it. Masked. Clothed in ancient lunar armor. Each one radiating pressure that made even Kale step back slightly. Lucien immediately positioned himself in front of Elara again. But one of the figures raised a hand. A voice echoed. Not spoken, but projected into every mind present. Moon Sovereign Elara Silverfang. Elara looked up at them. Her body instinctively reacted to their presence. Not fear. Recognition. The voice continued. You are hereby summoned for containment, or correction. Lucien's aura exploded instantly. You will not take her. Kale laughed once under his breath. This just got complicated. The council figure tilted slightly toward Lucien. Alpha King Lucien Draven, it said. Interference will be recorded as rebellion. Lucien didn't move. I don't care. Elara stepped forward slightly. Both Lucien and Kale reacted immediately. But she wasn't stepping away from them. She was stepping toward the light. The council. Lucien called her name sharply. Elara. She didn't stop. Her voice was calm now. But stronger than before. I need answers, she said. The council remained still. Elara looked up at them. If I go with you. A pause. Her glowing eyes sharpened. Do I get to decide who I am? The six figures did not answer immediately. That silence said everything. Lucien growled lowly. Kale exhaled slowly. Elara turned slightly. She looked at Lucien first. Then Kale. Then the burning battlefield outside the castle. And finally. She made her choice. Her power flared once. Not violently. But precisely. The council's descending light wavered. For the first time. They hesitated. Elara spoke clearly. I will not be contained. The sky cracked with silver lightning. The Moon Sovereign had refused the summons. And somewhere deep beneath the world, a sleeping ancient throne began to awaken in response. Lucien stepped beside her immediately. Kale exhaled slowly, almost amused. Well, he muttered, that's one way to start a war with the gods. Elara didn't look away from the council. But her voice softened just slightly. I choose my own path. And for the first time. The world did not immediately disagree. The throne that answered her name. The sky did not calm after her words. It broke. Silver lightning spread across the heavens like cracks in glass, and the floating council figures flickered for the first time since their arrival. The ancient runes above Silverfang Castle trembled as if unsure whether reality itself was still obeying them. Elara stood at the center of it all. Not kneeling. Not floating. Just standing. And somehow, that was more powerful than everything else. Lucien remained at her side, blood on his sleeve, gaze locked on her like she was the only stable thing in a collapsing world. He no longer looked like a king commanding armies. He looked like a man choosing a side in a war between gods. Kale stood a few steps away, unusually quiet now, his earlier confidence replaced with sharp calculation. Even he understood the shift. This was no longer about claiming Elara. It was about surviving what she was becoming. The council leader's voice echoed again, but weaker now. Moon Sovereign, you must comply. Elara tilted her head slightly. For the first time, her expression was calm. Not confused. Not afraid. Clear. I spent my whole life being told what I am, she said softly. The wind around her stilled. I won't do it anymore. The silver runes above her cracked further. One of the council figures raised a hand as if to suppress her power. But it stopped mid-motion. Frozen. Not by force. By command. Lucien's eyes widened slightly. Kale exhaled once, almost impressed. Elara continued. If you want me contained, she said, voice steady, you'll have to understand me first. A pause. Then she lowered her hand gently. And the pressure across the battlefield shifted. Not into violence. Into awareness. For the first time, the shadow beasts, Crimson Fang wolves, Silver Fang guards, even the council itself, felt something different inside her power. Not destruction. Choice. The council flickered. One by one, their forms began to destabilize in the sky. Not defeated. Recalibrating. Interesting, one of them whispered faintly before fading. And then... silence. The runes collapsed into drifting silver dust that scattered across the storm. The sky slowly began to close again. But the world had already changed. Elara turned slightly toward Lucian. "You stayed," she said quietly. Lucian's expression softened just a fraction. "I told you," he replied, "I don't abandon what I choose." Kale let out a short breath. "Romantic," he muttered. "Dangerous. But romantic." Elara almost smiled. Almost. Then she looked toward the horizon. Far beyond the mountains, something ancient was still stirring. She could feel it now. A throne. Waiting. Calling. And for the first time, she did not feel like it was hunting her. She felt like it was waiting for her to decide. Elara's silver glow dimmed slightly. Not disappearing, but settling, like a storm choosing direction instead of chaos. "I'm not your weapon," she said softly, to no one in particular. Then she looked at all of them. "I'm not your mistake." A pause. "I'm not your queen, either." Her eyes sharpened faintly. "I am what comes after all of that." The wind rose gently around her, like the world exhaling. Lucian stepped closer, not in possession, but in presence. Kale watched carefully. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, a forgotten throne finally answered. What would you do if the most feared Alpha King chose the forgotten servant instead of the perfect Luna? Would you trust the power awakening inside you, or run from it? If this story pulled you into its world of love, betrayal, war, and destiny, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more epic werewolf fantasy stories every week. Tell me in the comments, Team Lucian or Team Kale? And remember, some queens are crowned. Others awaken.